So quickly, just for housekeeping, let me quickly do the intros for when it's coming up to YouTube. So thank you for joining me. My name is Mike, and I'm a plant-based cordon bleu trained chef. So I'm doing these cooking classes every couple of weeks with just community so we can stay connected and cook in our kitchens together. I love ethnic food of any kind, from any country, any nationality. So actually putting it out there to my Zoom audience right now, you guys get to choose what the next cooking class is that I haven't done yet. So pick a country. Somebody can put it in the chat or interrupt me at some point if it pops up. And I'll write some recipes for a couple of weeks from now. So that's the main thing. I'm just really trying to do this, trying to fit this within the hour. If you came to the Indian one, it was a bit of a disaster. So I did ask you guys to do a little bit more beforehand, just so we can keep it within an hour, 75 minutes. And we cook along together, and hopefully by the end you have a meal that you can eat that's delicious and plant-based. So we're gonna start. The first thing I wanna do is I wanna just go through a couple of the ingredients quickly. And then as I'm using them throughout, I'll also stop and we can talk about them a little bit more. So I'm gonna switch over here. What's going on? Come on. Here? Okay. I think I've only done this a couple of times before or something. That's not really exactly how I want it to be, but we'll deal with that for now. So the couple of things, I just wanna talk on a couple of the ingredients. So you don't need to get all these things, right? So things like kaffir lime leaf, things like lemongrass, galangal, it's a relative of ginger, so that's galangal right there. It's a little bit lighter. I found this at an Asian grocery store near me, so they've already like processed it a bit. It's been kind of peeled and cleaned up a little bit, so it really does look a lot more like ginger, white ginger, if you find it without it being processed at all. It has a different flavor, a very different flavor from ginger. It's kind of spicy, citrusy. It's got like a piney flavor to it, but you can totally replace ginger with galangal in any recipe, and it's going to still be tasty. It's just not like completely authentic because they would be using galangal and not ginger in Thailand. Right? So lemongrass is a very similar thing. So lemongrass, I could only find this again processed. This was actually at another grocery store. They had it unprocessed at the Asian grocery store, but I'd already bought this. So this is, again, if you have gotten as far as step 1 and 2 of how to deal with the lemongrass, you basically cut the top and bottom off where it's tender enough that your knife can go through it easily. And then there's a couple of the outer leaves that are really woody have been taken off, and I'll show you when we need to how to process that, but that's kind of like step 1 and 2, and then there's a couple more steps to get it ready to use. Kaffir lime leaves, with lemongrass, if you don't have that, you just use lemon zest. And again, it's a different kind of citrus flavor. Like lemongrass is a lot more citronella kind of flavor, whereas lemon zest is more of that pledgy kind of lemon flavor, right? Like pledge is in like furniture polish, which maybe isn't the best description. But kaffir lime leaf, similar thing again. So it's got it tastes like lime zest. It just has a very subtly different kind of lime zest flavor to it. So these are things, whenever you're trying to make a recipe like this, it can be a bit overwhelming if you see all these ingredients when you go online. And my intention with these recipes is to give you options. So if you want to be adventurous and go to the grocery store, that has these ingredients and buy them, amazing. All of these things can be frozen, right? You can freeze. I've had kaffir lime leaves in the past in my freezer for like 2 years, and they still taste plenty fine for the Thai food I want to make every couple of months, right? If they're in an airtight container. Stuff like the galangal, the lemongrass, you can chop this in a food processor, freeze it in ice cube trays, freeze it in a Ziploc bag, and kind of smash off a little bit as you need it. So it's really, people always comment that I can easily cook ethnic food really quickly out of my kitchen, and it's because I have this kind of stuff around, right? It takes up a small amount of space in my freezer once it's processed, and then I can pull out, these ingredients overlap for some different countries, and you can make, Cambodian, you can make Indonesian, you can do different stuff with it. Tamarind was the last thing I wanted to talk about. So this is the way, if you saw the video I posted a couple days ago on YouTube, this is how I like to process this. This is a trick I saw like way back in the day on Martha Stewart Living, and she said this is how you can, how to deal with tomato paste. Whenever you open the can of tomato paste, you can't use it all. So you basically just make sausage links with plastic wrap. I'm very anti-plastic wrap in the grand scheme of things, but I have it in my drawer and it's really convenient for when I want to store tamarind. So that's why it's like that. You can also store it in an ice cube tray and keep it in a jar or something in your freezer as well. So that's all the words. I think that now we can start on the couple of things that I want to do is I'm going to prep some of this stuff, and then we'll get the soup going and then move through some of the other stuff. They're all pretty quick recipes if you look, right? Nothing takes more than 25 minutes, 30 minutes, but the soup has to simmer and we'll get that going, and then we can get the satay working and put it in the oven. In my experience, marinating tofu doesn't make much of a difference. So it's not like you have to marinate it like you would want to marinate meat. Some of this I probably could have done before. I just wanted to show you what the stuff looked like without it all being chopped up already. So I'm going to do galangal. Let's start with that, okay? So all of these things that we're gonna make, let me just double check my recipes so I don't do anything that's not written down here. So for galangal, we need 2 tablespoons chopped. For the soup, just double checking, triple checking your recipes over and over again. There is none in the pad thai. For the satay, we need another couple teaspoons. For the peanut sauce, we do not need any. And then for the mango salad, we don't need any. So we just need it for 2 dishes. So I don't need all of this. Just need this piece here. It's a bit more tender than ginger is. It's kind of weird. It's like the texture of it's almost like a mix between ginger and a carrot. If that makes any sense. If you look at it, I don't know if you can see that. It actually kind of looks like a carrot whenever you slice through it. It's got the same kind of ring down the center. So you can do all of this by hand. I like to use a little mini chop. It just saves some time, makes it very uniform. So if you don't have one of these, you just do what I just did to start, slice it, and then kind of go through it with a knife back and forth until it's finely chopped. The mini chop makes very short work of that. I've learned from these last couple of cooking classes not to tell you guys important information when I have the Vitamix or this mini chop turned on. Last couple of times I've been talking away and you can't understand anything I'm saying when I go back over it. So just chopping this stuff up. It's a little bit more fibrous sometimes than ginger, but again, if you use ginger often, you know that it really depends on how old your ginger is. If it's sitting in the fridge for a while, it can get pretty tough too. So that's that chopped up. A couple tablespoons for the soup. I've said this before, I'll keep mentioning it, like just as far as mise-en-place, if you've heard that term before, right, as a chef. So that's just kind of getting your stuff in order, putting your things in its place, your ingredients. So what I do is I have these little stickers. This is what I like to do. This comes from my days working in a test kitchen. I write beside each recipe title, A, B, C, D, whatever you want to write beside it. You can use any kind of variation on that. And then I make stickers and I kind of label bowls. So when you're organizing, again, if you want to cook a bunch of recipes in an hour and make dinner where that's kind of, you know, seems complicated, it just helps you keep it a bit more organized. So it does make it a little bit more achievable. And that being said, every time we've done this, me as the chef here with the training has messed up the recipes. Because again, I don't really use recipes when I'm cooking. I kind of know what goes in this stuff. I'll quickly glance at one of my recipes, but I don't follow them exactly. Okay, so that's galangal. I'm just going to quickly tap out extra food processor. All these flavors are pretty, like, you know, it's not like you're going to ruin a dish if there's a little bit of galangal residue left over on your lemongrass. So you don't have to be crazy. You don't have to wash it in between steps here. Okay, lemongrass. This is a good one. So if you just chop this up, it'll have a bit of the flavor, but what you want to do with lemongrass is you want to actually smack it with the back of your knife. I'm actually going to grab a heavier knife than this one. So if you have like a little dainty chef's knife like that one, if that's all you have, then just use that. It's not the worst thing. I have one that's a bit heavier. The lighter one's nice for chopping vegetables. This is nice if you want to smash the back of the, smash stuff with it. So I'm actually going to do this big one. I think that's probably going to be all that I need. So what I've done, as I said before, first, this one actually needs a bit more. So I can see that there's a really woody stem there. So I want to cut the woody stem off so that it's kind of, you can see the layers of the lemongrass. You see flies flying all over the place. I can't tell you how many flies keep getting into this house. So I don't kill them. I'm a yogi. I try to let them out. But anyway, what you're going to do is smack the back of this. Don't bother me. And you just want to really pulverize it a little bit. The purpose of this is that it's breaking open the cell walls. You can flip it over and do the other side. And it really releases some of those oils, those like volatile oils that give the lemongrass its flavor. So when you slice through stuff with a knife, with a really sharp knife, it doesn't break open the cell walls of things. So that's why sometimes you do want to mash stuff up. Like when you mash garlic up, when you mince garlic into a paste, it has a lot more flavor than if you just thinly slice it, which is actually why we've got some of them sliced in a soup. It adds a nicer, more subtle flavor when you thinly slice something as opposed to mince it, right? So it's similar. The more you break this up, the more you're going to get that nice lemongrass flavor as opposed to just it being very faint in the background, okay? So now I'm going to go through this with a knife, roughly chop it, and then from here I can throw it in the food processor. If you have a chopper, you need to process something like this a little bit because it's quite woody. Even the center part. So if you just throw that right in there without chopping it up at all, you're not going to get a very nice final result. It's going to be a mess. So I won't second. Just gonna blend that up. Again, just to get into the habit of it, right? Myself included, just double checking over the recipes here. So for the soup, I need 1 stock. That was a very big stock, so that's why I only did the 1. I think it'll be enough for everything. For the pad thai, I don't believe we need lemongrass. For the satay, a tablespoon. The peanut sauce, we don't need it. And then the last one again, I don't think we need it, no. Okay, so it's just these 2 recipes again. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna label the bowls like I told you to, even though I didn't do it. So A is for the soup, and then C is for the pate. Not pate, not pad thai. It's satay. I mix those 2 together. Okay, and then we're gonna do lastly here, I'm just gonna portion this up. So it's about, oh, that needs a little more chocolate. Actually. Lemongrass is very woody, so you might need, to be a little bit more patient with it. For each. You want to be careful. Don't overdo it. If you have a bit of extra, you can put a little bit of extra, but be careful with lemongrass. If you put way too much lemongrass, it does kind of end up making your food taste like a citronella candle. You don't really want to smell like your dish to smell like it's repelling mosquitoes. Okay, I think that might be pretty much it. I need to do here just the kefir lime leaves, which I'm not going to do, and the chocolate. That would be silly. Too small of that. Okay, so I will show that to you though. So with the kefir lime leaves, what I would recommend, if somebody went out, if one of you out there went and bought the bag, they probably came in a bag or like a styrofoam tray, you got probably a big chunk of them. And for most dishes, you need like 1 or 2. The more you enjoy these kind of different cuisines, you might want to increase it. Like I find that if somebody's used to a Western palate, like they're used to just eating, Thai food at a Thai restaurant in Toronto, it's very different than Thai food that you might get in Thailand, right? I've never been to Thailand, but I just know that like there's a bit of a discrepancy there where we kind of dumb down the flavors a bit sometimes in the West. So if you like, really love the flavor of lemongrass, add more. If you've never cooked with it before, don't go gung-ho and then say that you hate lemongrass because it tasted gross. You might have just put way too much into your dish, right? So with kefir lime leaves, that is a good segue because if you put too many of these, I find it to be extremely unpleasant. If you put a little bit in the background, it really makes the difference. Note about kefir lime leaves, sometimes they do have little spines on the branches, so if you get them whole branches, I believe this one is actually, oh, this is beautiful. They've actually gone and picked through these for me. Sometimes you get it and it's like whole branches. They've actually separated these into like they grow as 2 leaves connected like this, so they've already separated them into individuals. That's nice. So I would pull out, if you have kefir lime leaves, pull out, something like that. Looks good. That'll be probably, actually I'll do a little bit more just in case. And then this will get frozen for me and I'll have now, I threw out my bag of kefir lime leaves when I moved a few months ago to this new house, and now I have new ones that'll be there for a while. So what I'm doing is I'm just going, so I'm gonna turn it over. I want you to be able to see this. If you kind of just pinch it in half along the vein, so kind of follow it like you're folding a piece of paper. Oh, the bottom half fell off. The stem is really, you need to remove the rib in the bottom half more than the top half. So from here, if you just grab onto the stem, kind of pinch along on one side and you can just pull the stem out pretty easily. If you fold it, it really does help. It just pops right out. And then you end up with these 2 halves. So that this is like the top half of the 2 leaves. This stem will be a little bit thinner, but you can do the same thing. You fold it in half, grab the stem and just kind of peel it out like that. You'll end up with that. I don't know if you can see that, but. And then from here, similar technique we'll do to the basil later. It's gonna kind of roll it up just a little bit. Take my knife, I'm like into a little cigar. I don't know if you can see that. Should be a little lower maybe, but I'm just gonna thinly slice this now. So it's gonna turn into like little lime smelling confetti. You can smell it the second you start chopping it. You might not chop it quite as finely as I'm chopping it. Start, you can just go back over it. So what I'm gonna do, I'm actually gonna leave this. So I don't mind a bit of the texture in the stuff, and I think it keeps a nice green color, so it's gonna be pretty. I don't know if you can see that. Whoop, how fine it is. Yeah, It's not very big pieces because we've split the leaves in half and because there's no stems. If you don't de-stem it properly, then it can kind of be gross because you'll get little chunks of really woody pieces. So let's go through here. So we now have for A, we need 1 kaffir lime leaf, so that's about 1/4 of this pile. I throw that into the bowl that says A for the soup. This is a nice soup because you just put everything into one pot. You don't have to saute anything really. And then let's go through here, just quadruple checking our recipes. The pad thai doesn't have it. I think this is an ongoing theme. It's the same stuff going into the same dishes. Maybe not the kaffir lime leaf there either. Oh, that's it actually. Yeah, you can, like I say, I actually will add this sometimes to my peanut sauce. I don't really know why. I'm just seeing now that I didn't do that. So that's an option. I will probably add some of this when I make the peanut-free peanut sauce later. So I think we're good now. We're gonna go over to the stove. Grab that. Now this is one of these kind of recipes that's pretty easy to follow, right? Once you have everything prepped, that's really the work. What we're gonna do now is throw everything into the pot. So I'm just gonna go through the recipe. I'll read it off to you as I go. Double check if you made 4 cups of vegetable broth, like it said to in the prep, half a cup of this is for another recipe. So we just wanna take out half a cup of it. Just gonna stir. I actually made a little sticker that says, I don't know if you can see that, it says divide. So I didn't forget to do that. Just reminding yourself, right? Again, if you're trying to multitask, help yourself out. So I'm taking out half a cup and then everything else now, the rest of this recipe is pretty straightforward. You're just going to dump everything into the pot. So that was 3.5 cups of vegetable broth. We have going into here this the garlic, 2 or 3 cloves of garlic I have thinly sliced. So again, I'll show you that there because you didn't see me do it, but you can see it's just sliced up. You don't always have to mince up garlic, right? It's nice if you give it this gives a texture. It actually kind of looks nice when it's cooked in the soup and it gives it a much more subtle flavor. So that has in here, I keep saying to remove your stickers from your bowls or masking tape. Do not put it through the dishwasher. You'll regret it, I promise. It sticks way worse. So in there, shallot, there's also 1 red chili thinly sliced. You make it however you like it, like however you want to slice it, do that. It doesn't have to be a specific way. And then also going into here, I have what we just prepped. So that is the kaffir lime leaf, the galangal, and the lemongrass. I'm adding all of that in. And just looking over what else we have. So we've got the shallot, 1 stalk lemongrass, we've got the kaffir lime leaf, the chili, chopped galangal, and adding in 1 can of coconut milk. So 400 ml can, that's 13.5 fluid ounces. We do have any Americans out there with us. Welcome, welcome. I remember if I saw any we haven't passed. And then that's where we're gonna stop. So the tomato and stuff does go in a bit later. I'm just gonna turn this up now. Buddy, go to your bed, don't crazy. Go to your bed, please, buddy.
Mike.
Relax. Yes.
Mike, in the recipe,
Yes.
you say to put the coconut milk in with the tomatoes.
Oh yeah, see, here we go again. Okay. The only reason I do that is that sometimes it can split. You really don't. It does.
Okay,
Thank you for
thanks.
stopping and for catching it. Yeah, it's okay. It's not a big deal. No, that's good. It's really good to remind me. It's like every single time I try to follow the recipes, it just goes to show that the soup will taste perfectly fine. It's actually the acidity from the tomato or the lime it doesn't even like it curdles it because it's not dairy. That's not the right term for it. It just doesn't always look as nice whenever you've added it at the beginning and boiled it down. But we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll change the recipe. Okay, so that's gonna go now. I just set it over like medium high, bring it to a simmer, and we'll let it go for like 15 to 20 minutes. And then what I'm gonna work on now is the pad thai, the tofu for the 2 dishes. So I will just leave that. That's gonna look like that for the next.
Hey, Mike.
Yes.
Question, those chilies, the way you cut them, that's not gonna be too hot?
So it's totally depends on you. I think I made a note in there in the recipe. If you go down below it in the notes, I'm pretty sure it says something about that. Like I like spice, right? And it's hot and sour soup. So for me, I want it to be hot, right? But that's your call. So what you would want to do, Karen, that's a really good question, actually. Thank you. So what you would want to do if you have a chili like this, okay, and I can actually demo it because I'm going to put this into the mango salad later. So this is perfect. So what I'm going to do, wait, let me much better. Okay. So I'm gonna cut this down the center. Keep your fingers out of the way. I keep forgetting about the knife skills class, ladies and gentlemen. So if anyone thinks, like, if you have my contact information, just poke me, send me a text, and I'll make that happen. I just totally keep forgetting until we're here. So what I've done is I cut it down the center. I'm gonna take a little spoon. This is like one of those like demi-tasse espresso spoons. That's what I use if you just have a spoon with a good point on it. And then try your best not to get your fingers in all here, okay? You don't wanna touch this stuff. This is like sticks on your fingers through multiple hand washings, ruins your eyes when you take your contacts out. Not like, don't even talk about going to the bathroom. I've been there, that's not a fun experience. So just be careful, okay? Be careful. But if you can hold the shiny side and then just gently scoop into your bowl even so you don't get it all over your cutting board, just scoop the white part out. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, if I say it in the recipe, but the misconception a lot of people have about chilies is that the seeds are spicy, but it's actually this white membrane that the seeds are attached to. The seeds are, where are we? The seeds are spicy because of their association with this white membrane. It's not the other way around, okay? So it's getting that white membrane out of there. Depending on the species of chili, like it can reduce the heat by like 60, 80% even. So these have a lot of flavor and not that much spice when you take the seeds out. There's almost no heat to them really sometimes when you take the seeds out.
Okay, thanks.
So yeah, no, my pleasure. And yeah, so if you don't like spice, don't just nail off a whole chili like this. And the other thing to keep in mind is that chilies get less spicy the further they get away from the top, okay? So the white stuff is the most concentrated right at the top where the seeds are being produced freshly, right? This is a way of a plant protecting itself from animals eating its fruit so that its seeds don't get eaten, right? So the further away, that's why in the bottom of a pepper or the bottom of a chili, there's not gonna be any seeds or any membrane down there, right? So that's where if you don't wanna make it spicy and you have a few chilies, just use this part of it, right? And then the top part you can save for something else or you can scrape out, but the bottom half is like half as hot as the top half normally too. Lots of words again, but hopefully that makes sense. I will just now that we're here, I'm just gonna thinly slice this. The way I like to do it for the Thai mango salad is just to thinly slice it on a bias like this so you get little juliennes. I promise that if you've taken all the seeds out of this and you thinly slice it, it shouldn't be that bad for like most people that even say they don't like spicy food. Most people. If they're like somebody that thinks black pepper's spicy, then I can't. We're talking about a different situation. But if you don't mind heat, then this is probably not that bad, especially because you're putting it in there with the mango and there's like the palm sugars in the dressing for the mango salad. So, okay. So that I will set aside later to go with the mango. And next, we're going to talk about tofu. So I have not made the marinade yet. When I'm looking for tofu, the first thing I look for is for it not to be packaged in thick plastic like this, but unfortunately, this is the only one that I could find. So I prefer it to be wrapped just in a thin layer of plastic as opposed to like actually hard molded plastic, but that's just me, I'm a hippie. So the other main thing I'm looking for is sprouted tofu, okay? Organic, number one, please don't buy non-organic tofu. You want it to be non-GMO soy. You want there not to be pesticides and all of that kind of crap that's in there. Soy got a really bad rap, but it's like there's very different levels of soy. If you have organic, non-GMO soy, you can eat tofu a couple times a week. Like there are people in the world, there are countries where tofu is the main staple of protein that they eat, and those people are perfectly healthy. There's not like they have chronic disease or have too much estrogen in their bodies, right? So it's just being aware of the quality that you're getting. You want to look for sprouted if it's something you have trouble digesting. So I find if I eat just organic tofu, I get a little bloaty, I get a little gassy, a little burpy sometimes, right? I can say that when I eat sprouted tofu, I do not have that experience, or it is very, very dramatically lessened whenever I have it sprouted. The reasoning behind this is that essentially when you've sprouted tofu outside of the body, it makes it much more easy to digest for your gut bacteria, okay? So basically the sprouting process, when a seed is not sprouted, all of the nutrients, all of the stuff that is like the potential to make a plant is locked inside of that seed. When you sprout it, actually the life begins, right? It starts to sprout, it germinates. The nutrients that are in the endosperm of the seed actually get released for it to start growing into a plant. And when they're released for it to start growing into a plant and then you puree it into tofu, it makes it released and more easy for your body to digest. So that's the reasoning behind that. It's becoming much more available now. I can find this in most grocery stores where they have a tofu presence. Not always, so it depends. Again, it depends on where you're seeing this, where you have the ability. If you have like a Whole Foods or like a Goodness Me or an Planet Organic or something like that, there's probably going to be sprouted tofu somewhere around. Now, I'm going to take a clean tea towel you can use paper towel. Again, I just don't like to waste that kind of stuff if I can avoid it. So this is clean. I know it's lint free. You want to press moisture out of your tofu before you start working with it, okay? So what I'm going to do here, the first thing I'm going to do, just to be able to get more moisture out of it. Oh, shoot. It's boiled over the soup. There we go. That is it. Mom, thank you for reminding me. You don't add the coconut milk because it makes it boil over, people. It foams up. Let me bring you back over. Let me just show you what that was all about.
That's
exactly
what I'm
why
here for, Mike.
No, I appreciate it. Well, you're more than a pretty face. I've told you that before. So yeah, this is what we're dealing with now over here. So this is great. I'm so glad that happened because this reminds me why we did that. When you add the coconut milk, you get that really vigorous kind of frothy boil, just like whenever you're boiling cream, okay? So even though it's not dairy, coconut milk does perform a lot like dairy. It's not as bad as it looks. I heard it as soon as it went. A bit of lemongrass residue. My stove looks kind of gross. But yeah, so you'll just see, I'm going to let you see what happens there if it's going to start building up. Basically, if you do it really, really low, so you can see the foam starting right away, right? So don't do that. I'm going to turn this right down. I'm going to pull it off again and let the burner cool down. I'll come back and add that back onto the heat in a second. That is the reason I will add that into the recipe, why it's like that, because that really does make a big difference. And it doesn't matter, the coconut milk doesn't need to be in there, it's not like it develops the flavor. So, back to tofu. What I'm gonna do now is take this and I'm gonna cut it down the center this way, okay? So, in, what is this, vertically, horizontally, it depends on which way you've turned the block. I wanna end up with two big rectangles that are thin, okay? So like this is what I've done. So now I have basically satays ready to be sliced off and also cubes I can turn into for this pad thai. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just press the moisture out of it. So I'm gonna line these two up and I'm gonna put the towel. There are, you know, again, in places like in countries that consume tofu as their main staple, there are tofu presses. That's a thing that some people might have. You might have that in one of those in your kitchen already. And essentially it's just like a little thing with a handle that you turn on top and it gently presses the moisture out of the tofu. So the reason you want to do this is because if you want this to be crispy, it's much more important for the satay than it is for the pad thai. But if you want it to be crispy, you want the moisture to be taken out of it. Basically in the oven, you're waiting for the moisture to evaporate if you haven't pressed it out with a towel. So, okay. Let me just grab that. And then tofu. So what we're gonna do now, what I wanna do for the satay, I'm actually gonna do it lengthways like this, okay? So we'll just cut it for the satay first, and I'll come back for the pad thai after. What I told you to do was, it's basically a third of this one block will go into your pad thai, and 2/3 of it will get turned into satay, okay? So I'm just gonna put the soup back on the stove now that the burner's cooled down. So we'll just put the fan on low. Keep that ear out for that. Hopefully it doesn't boil over again. One day I'll do one of these cooking classes and I promise I'll follow my own recipes. Hasn't happened yet, but it'll happen one day. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now, I think I put numbers into this recipe. Let's see what I said. So I said to cut it by 2.5 centimeters by 12 centimeters by 1 centimeter, which is 1 inch by 6 inches by half an inch. I think that's what we have here roughly. So that's about 1 inch. That's about 6 inches. It's the length of the block. And then I'm gonna do about 1/2 inch slices here, okay? So like this, this. It's not an exact science. I just got 6 out of that. Yeah, that should be about right. And then from there, from this other piece, I'm going to take 4. Okay, so that'll be like that. So there's the satay. And then this piece here, now I'm going to dice this up. It's as fine as you want to. I like the pieces a bit smaller. So what I'm going to do is again now slice this down the center carefully. So I end up with 2 nice thin pieces, okay? And then now I'm gonna dice this into roughly that size of a dice. So cut it into strips that are about the same width as it is thick. Turn the whole thing, and then slice it here. I don't like to get the knife going. Like, you don't wanna do this whole kind of thing with your knife when you're doing something like this, because you'll just have cubes of tofu going all over your kitchen. So just be patient, go slow, keep your fingers out of the way. All right, so I'm gonna set this aside for the pad thai later. And then this part here, just to kind of preface the whole skewering situation. You don't have to skewer them, okay? Let's just be honest. So if you don't want to go to the trouble that I'm about to go through, it's kind of a pain in the ass, let's be totally honest. They look cuter, they're more fun to eat. If you want somebody to have more fun eating them, then totally do what I'm about to do. If you just want to lay these onto a cookie sheet and bake them without putting skewers inside of them, it's absolutely, completely not necessary. I'm not going to grill them. You can grill them, absolutely. You're gonna wanna oil the grill well because the marinade will stick a little bit, okay? And I find like it's the skewers burn, you'd have to keep foil there, and I figured for this cooking class today, especially for me to like run out to my driveway and have the barbecue ready, didn't seem like it made sense, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna skewer these and then we'll make the marinade and then we'll get them in the oven and that should all go okay. So what you wanna do is take it in your hands, take the satay in your hand, and you're gonna try to just like, without stabbing yourself in the hand, very slowly, I would say you wanna do a little twisty motion like this, okay, as you're pushing. Twisty motion, trying to line it up. There's a good chance your tofu might split down the center, okay? This is what I'm saying, it's not necessary. So if you get really frustrated and they're like falling apart, voila, okay? Tofu satay, looks great. Okay, you don't need to go to all this trouble. That one was trying to split on me. I can already see that one of these here is going to be probably too thin. But you know what? Actually, wait. Let me take back what I just said. It's probably easier on the cutting board. I would say keep it flat and then do a twisty motion as you push. Because in my hand, it was like wobbling a little bit. And just try to feel. You want to keep that down the center. Don't let it get too close to either end or either side or it's going to split it. Okay? The twisting helps if you get stuck. You might not need to twist too much. Don't like twist the whole time and then have yourself going all willy-nilly. Be careful not to stab yourself. Bamboo skewers are way sharper than you might think they are. I am a chef that has made a lot, like I have thousands and thousands of satays and catering gigs. I have stabbed myself to the point of bleeding and needing to put on bandages and finger cots more times than I would like to admit making satay. So please do not underestimate the sharpness of a bamboo skewer. You don't want that in the middle of your palm or something. Okay, that's not gonna make it a fun dinner. It's just, yeah, it's much better on the cutting board. So just keeping it like nice and sturdy on the cutting board, trying to keep the skewer parallel down the center. They're totally more fun when you skewer them, like let's be honest, okay? Like this is gonna makes it more enjoyable to eat. If you have kids that you're trying to serve this to, if you put anything on a stick, I don't even have kids, but I'm just pretty aware that that makes things a lot more enjoyable to eat, right? More fun when you can dip stuff. You can't really dip them if you haven't skewered them the same way. All right, so that's that. This last one here I think is far too thin, but I'm gonna make it my best effort. That'll be the most challenging one here. I didn't talk about soaking the skewers. If you're putting these in the oven, it really does help still. Like even, they're not gonna burn probably in a 425-degree oven. Yeah, that one totally split. So that's what you're trying to avoid, have happen, right? Okay, it's still in there. I'm gonna hope for the best. So that's that, done, skewered. I just soaked these. I poured a boiled kettle over them and I let them soak for like maybe the last hour or something. I find that I never count because I never know. Every time I do any satay, there's always like 5 bamboo skewers going to the garbage. So I don't like to save the soaked ones. They can go moldy and stuff, so don't do that. All right, that is that. I already have the oven preheated. If you have not done that, do it now, and it'll hopefully be ready by the time we get this marinade done. Okay, so I'm gonna do everything. I'm just gonna make the marinade inside of this mini chop. It would be a little bit better maybe if it was done inside of the, in the Vitamix, but you know, it's already dirty. Who cares? Like, I don't need it to be perfectly smooth. It's just getting brushed on satays. So starting here, let's go down. We're gonna start at the coconut milk. I have another can of coconut milk here. Let's see if we can accomplish doing this recipe without messing it up. It's just marinade. Do this. Okay, so it's a 1/4 cup of coconut milk. I am going to eyeball the 1/4 cup of coconut milk, but that will not mess it up. If you cook for a lot and you're like comfortable, you do not need a marinade, or marinade. You don't need to measure something like coconut milk for a marinade. Okay, if you get all anxiety about like, did I get the 1/4 cup right? Like just stop, okay? Calm down, take a breath. You're doing great. It's not an exact science, especially like if you're baking a cake, maybe care a little bit more about quantities, but if you're making a satay marinade, it's more about does this taste good at the end. If you don't like the taste of my recipe, then add more sugar, add more tamari, whatever you need to do to make it taste good. So here, 2 tablespoons of tamari, I will measure this. There are recipes all over the internet for vegan fish sauce. And the reason I didn't do it is because it was a lot of ingredients that are just to make the vegan fish sauce. And in my brain, like I feel like I can taste what things are gonna taste like when I'm reading a recipe. And it didn't seem like it was worth it. It was like having to buy kombu, which is quite expensive, a kind of seaweed, and buy dried shiitake mushrooms, which you always have to buy a big package of. And excuse me. To me, it just didn't seem like it was going to be worth the effort, and I didn't want to send you guys a shopping list here that had all that stuff. Maybe one day I will do that just as a recipe on its own for my blog. If you're not already subscribed to my YouTube, do that. I do have a website that will be getting updated in the near future. Okay, so we are going to now do some palm sugar. I have this really cool container. My friend used to live in Cambodia, and she brought me back organic palm sugar from Cambodia in this. So I just like always refill this because I think it's the cutest. It's like actually like with, I think it's banana leaf or bamboo leaf or something like that woven around it. So a tablespoon. I'm using coconut palm sugar because that's kind of more authentic Thai. Moroniki's out there, one of my friends is out there, and she was like, my mom's grating the palm sugar like today. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. Like that's even less refined, right? You can get it. It's called jaggery in India. There's different things you can get like that are that unrefined block of sugar that you can then grate over. Actually, if you've ever wondered on a box grater what this part is for, it's almost useless, right? You can like grate hard cheeses on it. That's also like what you would use for grating the palm sugar and stuff. You like grate, tap it on the counter to knock off the excess, grate. Just for a side note, if you did get coconut palm sugar that is like a hockey puck, that's what you need to do with it. That side tangent there was what I was going to say is if you don't have coconut palm sugar, maple syrup is not that outrageously different in flavor, and it's a great option if you are in Canada and don't want to buy palm sugar. So here is the galangal and the lemongrass that we chopped earlier. I'm going to add that back into the mini chop. And I've got some ground cumin, some ground turmeric. I do have fresh turmeric in the fridge actually, but at this point I'm not going to take up the time to do that. I could have chopped that earlier. If you have fresh turmeric, go for it. I'm also just eyeballing. This is a teaspoon of cumin and half a teaspoon of turmeric. If you like cumin, add more. If you don't like cumin, add less. Ongoing theme. It's your food. You make it taste the way you want it to. Use this as guidance. Okay, and then black pepper. I got this in Turkey a couple years ago. It cost like $1.50, and it makes the finest ground black pepper. So good. Okay, that's that. I'm gonna mix this up. Give it a quick taste, make sure that it's good. I missed something in there. Did I miss? Oh, maybe I missed lime juice. Wait a minute. There's supposed to be something acidic.
Hey, Mike.
Yes.
It's Karen's partner. I notice you use electric instead of gas. Is that on purpose? On the stove?
I'm renting, so that's my main thing. Is like, if I'm being totally honest, I don't love gas. So I'm a trained pastry chef as well, and there's a lot of things you can't do in pastry on a gas stove because it gets too hot around the edges and it messes stuff up. For controlling liquid and or for, temperature for boiling and stuff like that, absolutely, it's better in certain regards. I can't stand these ceramic cooktops, if I'm being honest. I would probably rather have one of those old coil elements. These are easier to clean, but I really don't like the temperature control and stuff on them. It's really that. It's more, for me, I don't have a gas line in my old house. I didn't have a gas line in the kitchen. So gas is better for certain things. If you're wanting to do pastry, if you're wanting to do any of that kind of stuff, like cooking custards or anything like that, it's not really ideal over top of gas. It's very hard to control super low temperatures and sustained like low simmers and stuff over a gas stove. I find it's like on or off, right? Even low on gas isn't great. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
If I had the option, my dream stove would be like, I don't know if you've seen them where there's 2 gas burners, then there's an induction burner, and then there's like a grill on it. Like it would be something along those lines is what I would pick if I had the option where you have all of the different options. Induction is the best. better than a stove like that, because induction is on and off instantly, and you can literally set the temperature to exactly what you want, right? So, okay, so what I'm gonna do now, I said to brush this with oil. I have like spray avocado oil. I'm just gonna give that a quick spray here. The oil just helps to crisp it up a little bit. What I'll actually do is I'll spray the top of them a little bit with oil too. So what I've got now, it's easier to just brush them individually rather than right now, like put them into a bowl and toss them with the marinade. I only have 10 here, or 12, right? Depending on how big your block of tofu was. So I'm just gonna kind of brush them. Get the marinade on there. If you have extra marinade, this can actually, like, you can save it and marinate more, like do more tofu, do chicken satay, try whatever you want to do, get good quality chicken. But the other thing you can do is that you can just leave what's in here, which is maybe what I'm going to do, and just make my peanut sauce right on top of that, because a lot of the flavors are very similar. Again, my peanut sauce recipe did not call for lemongrass or galangal, but it's not like it's going to be offensive if it's in there. So yep, that's your choice. If you have a bunch of extra marinade. It's hard to make any smaller amount of marinade than we just made right here, right? Like you need to have enough to actually mix it up. And some chunks don't matter. Again, if you made this in a Vitamix, you will not have any of these little chunks of lemongrass or galangal in there. It does not bother me. If it bothers you, blend it longer. Chop it more before you put it in the food processor. Options. There we go. Okay, last one. And then I'm going to go back over here and I'm just going to kind of glob a bit more marinade on top of them before I put them in the oven. So just kind of like liberally loop it on top. You can, I didn't say to do it in the recipe, but the other option too is you can pull these out halfway through. Maybe we'll do that too. And flip them over and add more marinade on top of them. Another option. Okay, so I will set this aside. I'm going to go pop these in the oven. It's preheated to 425. So what do we have left to do here? We have to still make the pad thai. We still have to make the peanut sauce and the mango salad. What time are we at? Let's see here. Okay. As per usual, a little bit late, but that's okay. So my pad thai noodles, I put in the recipe to make your, to cook your noodles according to package directions. My noodles don't have any directions on them. I got the ones, I think these are one of the more commonly used brand in Thailand, actually. I'll show it to you right here. Elephant on the bag. There's also a brand that has a rose on the bag. And then there's also like that Thai kitchen ones that are like at every grocery store. But the thing, this cost me $1.29, and it's twice as much as the Thai kitchen one that normally is $5.99 or $6.99 at the like grocery store. So that's why, like, if you go to an Asian store, you're gonna save yourself a bit of money. And this is, so that's the side-by-side comparison. That's before and that's after. I've soaked those in warm water for about 45 minutes. That's the recipe that I found when I looked it up online. And then these will get finished cooking in the sauce whenever we add them into the sauce later. Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to finish the pad thai, I think. The last recipe, the sauce won't take any time at all, and the green mango salad is really just chopping up. I've got some of the other stuff done for that already. So for the pad thai, we've got the tamarind puree here. There's so many different ways to get this. My mom called me this morning and was asking because hers is actually basically fully processed already. So the consistency of this when it's done, like the way that I do it, there's different ways, different countries. It's like the consistency of, like, I would say just a little bit thicker than ketchup, okay? So pad thai, side note, if you didn't already read the notes in the recipe, in the West and in Thailand too, there's in Thailand, in hotels and stuff like that, and in some restaurants, pad thai is made with tomato ketchup. Okay, as the base for the recipe. So if you go online and you're looking at a Thai restaurant and the picture of the pad thai looks like fluorescent red, it's probably being made with ketchup, okay? And that's not to say that's gross. It's very sweet, it's very tasty, and people like that, right? It's very addictive because it's got a lot of sugar in it. But what that comes as a result of is that tamarind is really what the base is supposed to be, and tamarind is not very available in most of the world. Like now it is, but I mean, pad thai has been popular for decades. And it was just a way, like, it's kind of a similar, I guess. It's tangy, it's sweet, it's kind of got a kind of similar flavor as tomato paste or ketchup. So that's, like, I think, kind of where it came from. But really, it's interchangeable. So if you don't have tamarind, you can make pad thai with ketchup. It's not going to be offensive. It'll taste just fine. But it definitely has a very, very, very different taste if it's been made with ketchup instead of tamarind. So that's just something that you can experiment with. Tamarind is available at a lot of grocery stores. If they have an ethnic food aisle, you may just never have been looking for it or never seen it before. But it is there often. It's like, again, you can go to my YouTube channel and see the video that I put up. You can kind of see what that one looked like. Or if you look in the comments on YouTube or in the email that you got, I give you an Amazon link. The one that my mom got off Amazon was processed already. The one that I had was like 99 cents or something from an Asian grocery store, and it needed to be processed. Which by process means soak it overnight in warm water and then pass it through a mesh strainer so you get some of that really tough fiber out of it. And then that's what we ended up with here. So this is again why after you do that, if you do that once, you'll end up with quite a bit. You know, this I had almost double this amount from the full recipe. So it just keeps in my freezer. And when I want to make something, it goes in a lot of Indian dishes, it goes in some Caribbean dishes. It's just there whenever you need it. Defrost quite quickly. All right, so for pad thai sauce, we're gonna do this in the mini chop again. I lied, I took out that leftover marinade and we'll just do it in here. So I wanna start adding stuff in. We've got a 1/4 cup of almond butter. I'm doing this peanut free, and if we wanna have like, let's just do this while I'm making a mundane sauce quickly and have the conversation about peanuts and why people don't eat peanuts. It's not just about allergies, right? So, well, I mean, it kinda is, but side note. So peanuts have something called aflatoxin on them. So there's a kind of mold that grows on peanuts. Peanuts are not a nut. They do not grow on a tree. They're a legume. They grow underground, right? And organic or non-organic peanuts have this mold and have this aflatoxin. And there are people out there, you can look up studies that some people think that the aflatoxin is what causes people to get an immune reaction or an allergy to it. And it's basically like if you eat peanuts here and there, it's not the end of the world. If you're someone like me who literally, like I went through culinary school, if I wasn't eating what I made at Cordon Bleu, I was eating peanut butter. And I like literally ate jars and jars of peanut butter. Aflatoxins can build up in the system. They can cause inflammation. They can lead to autoimmune conditions. There's a lot of things that it's not just like if you have a peanut allergy, you want to avoid peanuts. Some people, if you're riddled with arthritis, if you have migraines, if you have headache, like there's a lot of different things. Look it up, look up aflatoxin peanuts, be interested in that if it's something that maybe you eat all the time and you have autoimmune conditions or have symptoms that you can't quite place. That being said, you could replace this with organic peanut butter if that's all you have around and don't have almonds, right? So almond butter is definitely different tasting than peanut butter. They do not taste exactly the same, but they're both going to give you that kind of roasty, nutty flavor. More palm sugar. I'm going to measure a 1/4 cup here. This is a lot of sugar, it seems like, but yeah, pad thai is sweet, right? And if you're not making it with ketchup, you didn't already know that ketchup is like 1/3 sugar, not more. So that's what we're trying to replace there. Again, tamari. In the past, when I've had to make recipes like this, like I've done recipes for the grocery store chains, the food production companies I worked for, and you always have to be super aware of sodium. I'm not being super aware of sodium here because of no pad thai you've ever had in your life out of a jar or in a restaurant were they being aware of sodium. So if you need to be aware of sodium, use a bit less of the tamari. It's going to taste a little bit more bland, right? It's not going to taste quite as tasty. And if you find this salty, everybody's a bit different. So, you know, I don't have a high tolerance or a low tolerance for salt. I'm probably somewhere in the middle. 3 tablespoons of the tamarind puree. So I have one here defrosted already. Very tamarind. It's got a very unique flavor to it. This is something that is in a lot of different nationalities' cuisines. So it's in Caribbean food. It originates from Africa, so I'm sure that's how it ended up over in the Caribbean too. But then like Indonesian, Chinese, Thai, you know, South Asia, all kinds of India, Mexico, it shows up. So it's really interesting. It comes as candy. You might have had tamarind candies before that are like, there's mango and tamarind candies, there's chili and tamarind candies, that come everywhere. It's tasty. It's an acquired taste, but if you've had it a couple of times, it starts to grow on you, has been my experience of it. So I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of water now into this, then blend it up. You might not need the water. I can tell here, I think like I'm gonna add 1 tablespoon of water to start, and then we will see if it needs the other one. blend that up. Is that everything we need? I think so.
Yeah, I didn't add any spice to mine. I'm gonna have plenty of spice coming from the other stuff, so I'm not too concerned about that.
Okay, so yeah, I think this wants the other tablespoon. And the amount of water really depends. Again, I have a feeling now, because I followed the directions for these noodles that I found online, that they're going to need to actually have more moisture added to them. I think they're going to start absorbing the sauce pretty quickly. So again, it's like if you stir this together and it's gloopy, just add more liquid to it. Okay, that's that. So we're going to go over to the stove and we will start working. I've already got everything chopped up to start the pad thai. I did that before. Speaking to eggs, so I do eat eggs. I am not a full vegan. I am a mostly plant-based dieter. The eggs that I buy are like, I think it's between $7 and $9 a dozen, depending on where I buy them. I get eggs that come from like they're Mennonite, pasture raised, all of that kind of stuff. You know, small flock. If I'm buying animal products, I like to buy animal products where I know the animal was treated with some respect by the farmer. You know, and again, we can go into that conversation, but for pad thai, eggs are one of the main flavors. You don't have to add them, right? Like it's not necessary. I'm gonna leave them out tonight. That was an empty carton of eggs. I forgot to buy eggs. It's not the end of the world. What I did link in the recipe below, there's something called black salt. It has a very eggy kind of sulfury flavor to it, and that might be something you're interested in. If you're a vegan and you've never heard of black salt, check out the link below and just see, because it's something you don't need very much of it. You add a very, very small amount to dishes, but something like if you make egg salad with tofu, you can add a pinch of this black salt and it gives you that sulfury kind of egg yolk flavor, which is it's cool. It's different. So what we've got here, let's look through. I think I made that last recipe properly. That's crazy. In a large skillet, I'm going to heat some coconut oil up. We're just going to start by sauteing some of this. It's our saute timing. So I'm going to have this up here so we can see how that looks. Nice. So here, we have something that looks like that. See? Let's try it out. How can I do this? Oh, let's go right over here. Okay. So what I'm going to do, right over here. See? And I'm just going to, I have heat-proof fingers, but to be totally honest, the sticks don't get super hot if they were soaked. So you might want to check and see if you can do this with your fingers. If you use tongs, there's a better chance you're going to break the tofu off the stick. But you can also do this with tongs. Okay, and then I'm just going to go back over this quickly with that little bit of leftover marinade. I feel like this is just the right amount here to finish kind of covering those up. Every week I say this, and I will keep repeating it, that when you are making plant-based tofu, plant-based protein options, done is done to your liking. Done is not like a food safety issue, right? You're not going to undercook tofu where you're going to get sick from it, like you could if these were chicken, right? So it's really like you put them in the oven. If you cook them too long, they're going to dry out. They'll be chewy. They're not going to be inedible. If you cook them not long enough, you know, and that's all relative, then they may, they'll be soft. They might like fall apart as you try to eat them, right? So that's that. I'm going to pop those back in the oven now. Give them another 10 minutes. It's back over here. Whoop. I just turned that on. We'll do this. Necessarily want your oil smoking, but take the sticker off your bowl. It's there. So that is one shallot thinly sliced, that is a carrot thinly sliced, and that's a red pepper thinly sliced. Serving as the pad thai. Just gonna let that go. What else do I need to have ready for this? We've got the tofu. That's basically it, right? The tofu's here. Bean sprouts. I've got bean sprouts soaking over here. This is my first official harvest from my garden. Is the basil. Check the basil. I found envelopes of basil seeds, and I just like sprinkled them into a big pot in my front deck, and it's like basil everywhere. Okay, so I just want to keep this going. A little bit hotter than I wanted. I just turned it down. So just softening this stuff. if you like the vegetables crispier, then cook them less. If you want them softer, cook them a little bit longer, right? It's your call. So we've got all that. I'm gonna just finish sauteing. I'll add the garlic in a second as well. I've got the garlic sliced up for that. Don't want to have the garlic right at the beginning because it will burn probably. And then that's basically ready to go. So we're going to just work on the last couple things here. I'm actually not going to probably demo the peanut sauce, just in the interest of saving us time. It's really just throwing everything into a container. I'll talk through it after. Not into a container, but blending it together. So just gonna grab bean sprouts here. Trying to find this fine line of like doing things beforehand, but I also don't want to do everything beforehand and then not show you guys anything. So again, I think I have to keep it a little bit. I'm too overzealous. 5 recipes is a bit much. Okay, it's gonna be tasty. So this is looking good. I'm gonna add in the garlic now, and I'm just gonna stir that through till I can smell it. That was chopped garlic, cloves. I'm going to get the sauce ready. So my tamarind paste was pretty thin, but it could have been a little thinner. And I'm thinking, like, again, the texture here, if you've ever eaten pad thai, that's what you're aiming for. Okay, so I'm going to add more water to this, like, immediately. It's so funny. So I made this earlier in the week with a different batch of tamarind that was much moister. So this is organic. So it's good for me to do these multiple times with you guys. I just added a splash more water into the tamarind. Oh, I added too much water. It actually probably does need to be this soupy. So that when you add the noodles to it, it's going to, the noodles are going to absorb quite a bit of moisture. So. Adding in now the tofu, okay? Adding in the bean sprouts. The other thing that could be the reason that this is so thick is that I just scooped that almond butter and I was taking, I don't know if you know how like your almond butter kind of settles into layers. When I made it earlier in the week, I definitely did not stir it enough and I got more of the oily top part, and this was just like a big chunk of that hard stuff at the bottom of the jar. That will thicken stuff up any day. So now I'm adding the noodles. And I'm going to add even more water as the noodles are going to absorb it. All the stuff that we added to that sauce was very concentrated in flavor, right? So you can add some water to this. And I'm just, this part here is like really requires patience, okay? So you need to really just like let this slowly stir it. The noodles are going to start to absorb the sauce and things are going to look a little bit more uniform as you go. But as you're doing that, I'm gonna like just kind of let that go here. I'll turn the heat back on now. It does help to cook it with the heat on. So coming over to the soup, we'll add now, so pretend I'm adding coconut milk, boom. Add the coconut milk to your soup. And then also here, where did I go? Oh, I added the wrong garlic to the pad thai. Look at that. That chopped garlic was for the peanut sauce. This is my bowl of sliced garlic. I'll add some more sliced garlic over here to the pad thai. Okay. Just keep somebody, if you have multiple people in your kitchen, somebody can literally just be non-stop stirring this pad thai. You just need to keep moving it around. Let the noodles soak up the sauce. Add the tomato to your soup as well. You have a diced tomato there. You can add that now. And also the bean sprouts, half a cup of bean sprouts added in. You just want to bring that back to a simmer now. I think that that's pretty much it for the soup. The pad thai is more or less done. This just needs to keep cooking for a little bit longer. If your rice stick noodles, so I can tell right now that my noodles need to cook longer, okay? If you want to pick one up now and bite into it, I can tell by just the feel of them on the spoon. If they're really firm still and you feel like it's ruined, it is not ruined. What you need to do is add more liquid. Like if they're firm and it's all dried up, I still have moisture. I don't know if you can see that. There's still sauce in the bottom there. That's great, right? Pad thai is not super saucy normally. The noodles have absorbed the sauce, right? So if this sits here for a couple more minutes, I might have to add another tablespoon of moisture to it, but just stirring it around, the noodles will absorb the sauce and they will get soft, okay? So that's all you have to do. If it's dried out, add more water and it'll soak it into the noodles, okay? That's coming out, looks better already. The soup is good. So we're gonna come back over to the cutting board and I'm gonna demo how to slice up the mango. Thank you. All right, so green mango. Okay, when you're making this mango salad, this is not a green mango. Like at the Asian grocery store, at a Thai grocery store, they will have green mangoes that are a different shape. They're a little bit smaller. They're really, really sour, okay? If you like that, go for it, right? If you can find one of those. Basically, any mango that's underripe is gonna work for this dish, okay? So in most Thai restaurants, this is a red mango. It's just barely starting to turn red. Whoop, you can see there. It'll probably would be quite red in a few days if I left it on the counter. So I'm just gonna peel this now. When you're peeling a mango, you wanna get down through the fibrous part. I don't know if you can see that, right? Like you wanna get so that there's none of the green left at all. You can kind of see the fibers underneath the skin. I'm just gonna peel this. Be careful as you're peeling it. Don't let it slip in your hand, right? It gets slippery as you get to the side where there's no peel. You can set it down if you need to. It's a little tricky when you get to just these last couple strips because it's super slippery, so just take your time. Okay, so remove all that. Top off. So with the mango, the pit's down the center widthwise, right? So you can see that like you don't want to cut it down this way. The pit is going to be right down the center there. You want to turn it on its side so it's like the more narrow. You're just going to start at the top and kind of follow your way along the pit down the center. If you've already cut lots of mangoes in your life, this is old news for you, but should be our satay finished. Be careful, okay? This is the kind of stuff where you can cut yourself, is doing like big thick stuff like this, heavy stuff. Okay, so that's good. Pad thai I'm turning down. Satay look delish. Show you those. So there's our satay, ready to go. The marinade's burned on the tray, but it has not burned on any of the satays. They look really tasty. I'm just gonna set those aside. We're basically almost ready to where we can eat here. The kitchen's looking a little bit more of a disaster than I would like it to be, but that's okay. Check your pad thai. If it's starting to stick, if it's starting to dry out, add a little bit more moisture to it. It's better if the noodles are a little like undercooked like this when you start, because then what this means is that the flavor of the sauce is soaking into the noodles. They're already really soft. When you start, it's not that's bad, but they won't have as much capacity to soak up the sauce. Okay, my pad thai looks good now. I'm gonna also show you this. You can now see that the different texture of the noodles has happened. So we've got that looking good. They're softer now. So if I know that if I just let this sit for 5 more minutes as I'm finishing up, that's gonna be perfectly done. So just make sure it's not stuck, scrape up the bottom. And okay, so the mango. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm going to slice this into like matchsticks. I'm gonna kind of put my hand flat on top and kind of follow horizontally to get a strip. Keep your hand out of the way. It's really all you got to worry about when you're doing this kind of stuff is just like keep your hand out of the way. If your hand's not in the way, then you can't cut it. Just try not to go too fast. So from there, then I'm just going to go across now. Fingers curled back. I'm actually not going to do this to the whole mango because I don't need this much mango salad just for myself, but that's generally the idea. Save the rest of that. So this this mango, I got it was like hard as a rock. I had it on the counter for like 2 days, and then I threw it in the fridge because I wanted it to be a bit underripe. So it's really your call. You don't necessarily want it like completely green and crunchy. Maybe you do. That's your call. It's not inedible. It just makes it much more delicious, and the textures are different than what you're used to from a mango for sure. So. Okay, so that's that. What else do we need for this mango salad? This is basically all we got left to do at this point. It's a shame I didn't get. I should have just made the peanut sauce before. That was my intention. I didn't get around to it. Okay, so we have the mango. I have this red onion ready to go right here. So half a red onion. When I'm doing thinly sliced red onion, instead of going in like in to make half moon shapes, you know, like or half circles, I actually like to do like up and down with the grain of the onion. It just gives you a bit nicer texture, looks prettier, in my opinion. If you're not a big fan of red onion, put a bit less. You can also do the trick that I did a few weeks ago for that Indian salad where you sprinkle them with salt and let them sit on the counter for 10 minutes, rinse them in water. It takes a lot of the oniony taste out of them. Half a red pepper. I have this half a red pepper left over. Right now in Canada, we have these shepherd's peppers everywhere that are local, and all of the bell peppers are still coming like from factory farms. They're not quite at the point where we can get them at farmers markets. So it's a very similar kind of taste from this pepper. A little sweeter actually. So I want to have roughly the same size or shape as the mango. So I'm going to kind of do this on an angle. You just want it to be roughly the same size and to look pretty. That's all you're aiming for here. The mango salad's nice to have just a bit of a cool, refreshing thing to eat if you've got spicy food. So I am going to add this chili in there, that having been said, because I like the spice, right? But that's your call. That's the one that I sliced up earlier when Karen was asking about it. And then for the dressing, I did say to mix the dressing before I added all the stuff to the bowl. So we'll do this in a separate bowl. I already juiced some lime juice, so we have 2 tablespoons of fresh lime juice here. Just eyeball the 2 tablespoons. We've got the tamari, 1 tablespoon. If you are not a vegan, you can add fish sauce in place of the tamari if that's what you want. We've got the palm sugar. You can see that these ingredients do overlap. They're occurring over and over again. So a tablespoon of that. It's really to taste. If you don't want it to be too sweet, then don't add as much. If you have extra bean sprouts washed sitting around like I do, I could add those into here. It's for the picture because it's not in the recipe. I won't do it for now, but I will do that later on, just add them in. So that's basically everything. And then the sesame oil, okay? So sesame oil does add that authentic flavor. You don't need to have it. They don't use it. Every recipe doesn't call for it. But it does add something to the peanut sauce and to the, it's just the President's Choice toasted sesame oil. There's lots of different brands. They sell much bigger bottles for much less money at the Asian grocery store. I just already have that in my fridge. All right, so I'm just going to whisk this up. That's lime juice, tamari, coconut palm sugar, and the sesame oil. We'll toss that into there. If you want to add oil to that dressing, you can go for it. Most of the time, these Thai mango salads don't have oil in them, and you don't necessarily need it. There's plenty of fat in some of the other dishes that we have. So I'm going to toss that up. Fresh basil here. So I've got some fresh basil. I'm just going to roll it up. So kind of stack all the leaves on top of each other. Again, roll it up like that cigar like we did earlier with the kaffir lime leaves. And similar thing. Close it out of the way. Just to give it a thin, it's a chiffonade if you want to use the French term. Just really means like thinly sliced. When you roll it up, it just makes it easier. You get this really nice, fluffy shreds. So I think, other than the peanut sauce, which just consists of blending everything together, so I will make that after we end this call and get a picture of it for YouTube. I'm thinking that we're basically done here. Let me just go back over this here. We got the mango salad, everything's in there. Peanut sauce we're gonna do later. Satay is done, pad thai. Oh, right, so all the accoutrements for your pad thai as well, right? That's something you wanna keep in mind. It really looks the nicest whenever got all of that extra, like the lime wedges and the freshly chopped herbs on top of it and the chopped peanuts and all of that good stuff. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna move this, come back over here. It's a pretty sad looking final product here because my soup boiled over, the pot's all dirty looking, but in the interest of saving time, I don't think it's necessary to start cleaning all the dishes right now. Give us a view of that. I'm gonna put the satay on a plate because that does not look attractive at all. That. But if anyone out there, don't unmute everybody yet, but if anyone has any questions, please feel free. Let me know how that just turned out. We're basically done. Bring it over the satay. I'll give you guys a shot of it all. All right. So, I switched over for no reason, I guess. I'm gonna come back over here now just so I can give you a better view. All right, so we have the mango salad. So that's looking great. You can also add some chopped cashews into that if you have extra chopped cashews. We have the coconut soup here. I think there was some green stuff added to that at the end, as there's supposed to be. Yeah, you can top that with some thinly sliced green onion, which I will do before I serve it. But again, that's like a hot and sour soup. Oh, and the lime juice, right, okay, we did not finish the soup. Just for the record, that's what's gonna still happen here. You gotta just pour in, I think that there's a tablespoon of lime juice. Yeah, I added the bean sprouts, but I forgot to add the lime juice. That's what's left here. This is 3 tablespoons of lime juice. Well, that was just hot soup. Now it's hot and sour soup. And again, you can top that with the green onions before you serve it. You can put more thinly sliced chilies onto it if you like to. Okay, here's our pad thai. Looking now much better, much more like it should. Like, you know, that stodgy kind of texture that you do expect from pad thai, right? And again, you can add the chopped herbs and stuff on top of that whenever you serve it. It's nice to do that as kind of like almost like a taco bar, right? Like have all the different stuff on the table and people can choose. They can squeeze lime over it. They can put the nuts, whatever they want to do. And then there we have our satay. So that's that. It was a little bit more hectic than I would like. These will keep happening. They will get better each time. I'm trying to be ambitious, but I'm also trying to try to keep it within the hour, which we did not do that successfully today. It'll be around an hour by the time I edit it down for YouTube. But yeah, that's that. Everybody, please let me know how it went. And thank you for joining me. So if you are watching this on YouTube, thank you for joining me. All the recipes are in the description below. They link onto my website, so please check it out. Like the channel, subscribe to the channel. And if you're out there live with me, if you like the videos on YouTube, if you comment on them, if you subscribe, it does help the channel get seen by other people. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers so I can start live streaming on my phone. They don't let you do that until you're on your phone, over 1,000 subscribers. So please share, spread the word. And yeah, somebody out there, tell me what we're doing for the next one. I don't have a country yet. You just need to give me a country and we will make that happen. Let me know how it turned out for you. Like, I'll come over right now and I'd love to hear how you guys are doing out there that are live with me. But if you're watching this later on YouTube, please comment below, share the recipes, share the video with people that want to make some plant-based at home. Yeah, have an awesome rest of your day. Keep moving your body, keep nourishing your body, and stay connected to your yoga practice. Yeah, I'll see you again soon. Who's out there? How did it go?
Thanks, Mike.